inch closer to that date.
That's for sure. The aforementioned David Gura is still in Washington and graces our desk right now here on Balance of Power. Of course, Bloomberg correspondent, host of the Big Take podcast, which is why you sat down for a good chunk of time with Hakeem Jeffries in his office. The sense of frustration was, I'm guessing, palpable.
It was. And as you both know, this is such a unique shutdown. The circumstances of it, how it's unfolding, and you've done such a good job of laying out all the potential pressure points here in the days to come. So far over the course of these 23 days, a lot of people have been shielded from those effects, the effects of the shutdown. We've seen Russell Vought, the head of OMB, moving a lot of things around to make it so that some people are paid, others aren't. Some programs are kept running, others aren't. Yeah. That can only last so long, one would think. And as we look ahead to Friday of this week, to Tuesday of next week, to when open enrollment begins for health insurance, pressure is going to mount. So it was a good time to sit down with the minority leader just to get a sense of sort of how this is all unfolding from his vantage in a very quiet Capitol building today. I asked him just sort of what kind of conversations are happening among Democrats and Republicans, and here's what he had to say.
Well, as Democrats, we continue to make clear to our Republican colleagues that we will sit down with them anytime, any place, in order to reopen the government, to negotiate a bipartisan agreement that actually makes life better for the American people in terms of spending and funding. But we also have to decisively address the Republican health care crisis. We've maintained that position from the very beginning, before Republicans shut the government down and during the entirety of the shutdown, because it is a real crisis that has been created at this moment, particularly as it relates to the urgent need to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
As you and I are speaking, the House Speaker is doing a press conference just down the hall. What is the level of engagement? Do you pass one another? Are you speaking with one another? Are Democrats talking to Republicans right now?
The conversations have been very limited, unfortunately, because Donald Trump has not given House Republican leaders or Senate Republican leaders permission to negotiate, reinforcing the principle from our view that he made the decision to shut the government down. They want to continue to inflict pain on federal employees. They've done that from the very beginning of Donald Trump's presidency. In fact, more than 200,000 federal employees had been forced off the job prior to the government shutdown. And this is something that we've continued to see them build upon during the shutdown. Until Donald Trump gets serious about reopening the government, unfortunately, we're going to remain in this situation, and everyday Americans are being hurt.
He's getting ready to take a trip to Asia. Is it appropriate for him to be doing that at this moment when the government is shut down?
I think that the president has a responsibility both domestically and throughout the world. However, what has been irresponsible is that throughout this shutdown, he's found more time to golf than he has to engage with Democrats on Capitol Hill. He's decided to try to steal $230 million in taxpayer funds from the Department of Injustice. Donald Trump and his administration have found $40 billion to bail out a right-wing wannabe dictator in Argentina and can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits to keep health care affordable for tens of millions of Americans. And on top of all of that, they are demolishing the East Wing of the White House in ways that have appropriately horrified the American people.
I want to ask you about potential off-ramps, and Tammy Baldwin, the senator from Wisconsin, Democrat, said Trump is the off-ramp at this point. Do you agree with that assessment, and has there been any kind of outreach or dialogue between you and the White House?
Leader Schumer made clear earlier this week that we have reached out to the White House again to indicate that prior to Trump's departure for Asia, he should sit down with Democrats to find a path forward, to reopen the government, to enter into a bipartisan spending agreement, and to address the health care crisis that Marjorie Taylor Greene acknowledges must be addressed, and that traditional conservatives who are in the toughest seats in the country have now publicly acknowledged this week needs to be addressed.
Can I ask you a question of congressional mechanics, and that is, can the Democratic leader pick up the phone, call the White House, and reasonably expect the president's going to take that phone call? Are you able to do that? And if so, what's keeping you from having that dialogue?
Well, traditionally, that probably is the case, but in this White House, that's very much unclear. Donald Trump didn't have a meeting with House or Senate Democratic leadership until 2 days prior to the government shutting down.
It was opening night at the Garden last night. Knicks versus Cavs. Knicks won 119 to 111. Also the final mayoral debate in New York City.
Yes.
Did you watch it? Have you kept up with what happened on stage last night?
I wasn't able to catch the debate live. I did catch the final few moments of the Knicks game, I do admit. But the debate had already ended at that point by the time my day ended. I did think it was interesting yesterday, and a strong step that was taken by Zoran, the Democratic nominee, when he indicated his intention to retain our current police commissioner, Jessica Tisch. I think that probably will provide a lot of comfort to people throughout the city of New York. She's done a great job. She's well respected. We're a diverse city, and it'll be interesting to see how that is received upon my return home.
You've been asked about this 1,000 times. Let me ask 1,001 times. Are you prepared to endorse the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City?
Well, what I'll say is I'm prepared to weigh in advance of early voting, and early voting
2 days away.
Early voting starts on Saturday.
Yeah. What's holding you up? And what are the issues that you're still concerned about? And I know that you said the last time you were asked about this, you were going to have a conversation with Zoran Mamdani, another conversation.
Yeah.
What's left undiscussed?
Well, I hope to speak to him today or tomorrow, and in fact, I plan on speaking to him today and tomorrow. And I think, from my standpoint, look, I was prepared to try to bring this to a close one way or the other several weeks ago, and then the government shutdown hit. And honestly, David, it's been all-encompassing, because this is a traumatic moment for the country that this has been inflicted on the American people, and then laying on top of it, right, just shutting the government down, as Republicans have done, is very problematic. But trying to communicate with the American people why we as Democrats also believe that addressing the Republican health care crisis is necessary, and explaining the entirety of the assault on their health care that has occurred this year, beginning with the one big ugly bill and the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, and the fact that their hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health centers are closing all across the country. Home care will be adversely affected. The possible cut to Medicare at the end of the year. The Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, and the threats that they're now making to even try to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and the assault on public health infrastructure. This is extraordinary stuff. We've never seen anything like this in the history of the country, which is why we believe it needs to be decisively addressed, along with, of course, reopening the government, standing by our hardworking federal civil servants, and making sure that we can enact the bipartisan spending agreement. So it's been all-encompassing, you know, for the last several weeks. That said, I do have a sense of obligation to weigh in one way or the other in terms of the mayor's race in advance of early voting.
So I did watch the debate, and the themes of criticism that came up from the other two candidates were he's inexperienced, and his comments on the Middle East are problematic. Are those likewise the same issues that you want to talk to him more about? What's left unsaid between the two of you?
Well, I've certainly already publicly communicated and privately communicated some of my concerns with respect to some of the views that he's expressed in terms of foreign policy. That said, I believe his relentless focus on affordability is the right focus. The question, you know, becomes, for any mayor, for any executive, how are you going to implement that objective? Because it's the right objective, but he's got to navigate a treacherous governmental terrain in terms of the city, state, and most significantly, the federal government, because it's clear that Donald Trump has it out for Democratic-led cities all across the country, and we've got to be prepared for the fact that Donald Trump is coming for New York.
I guess my question is one of confusion. So I sat down with Governor Cuomo, and in that conversation he said, I'm a Democrat. My dad was a Democrat. He's really taking up that mantle. Of course, he lost the primary. He's running as an independent.
Yeah.
Isn't there an element here of confusion that in this vacuum, and you could, I guess, do something to close that vacuum, he's able to take up that mantle to the detriment of the duly elected Democratic nominee?
Well, it's interesting because he is running as an independent, so he's not the Democratic nominee. But of course, he has a long history as a Democrat. I think some of the concerns that I've seen articulated, however, is, well, what is the actual path to victory given the inability to convince a majority of Democrats in the primary that you